Before I start chapter 1, I wanted to mention that if you guys want to be a part of this book's journey and also be in events for the book and everything like that, the Discord will be down below. It's the very first link and you guys can join it. We are actually doing a event every time that a chapter comes out. There will be a thumbnail event, so if you're an artist, this is something you can join. And basically you make art with the specific things that are mentioned for the event, and then you will post it there for the next chapter, and whoever wins gets 200 Robux from my Roblox group. And also they will have their art displayed for the chapter of that thumbnail, kind of like the first one that I made on the prologue and also this one. Just wanted to mention that. You can also join the Discord to give out ideas or just support the book overall, but I hope you guys do enjoy chapter 1, and let's get right into it. Chapter 1, Betrayal. 20 years have passed since the fall of Storm's own species. Storm found a mountain to hide out in. It had the perfect sized cave for him, but just small enough that it wasn't noticeable for anyone else unless you're really looking for it. Storm hated hiding away from everyone and missed being a tribe, even when some of them picked on him. He hadn't even seen his own species since the war and spent most of his time in his cave writing and reading scrolls. Sometimes he felt like he was wasting his life hiding in a cave doing nothing at all, but he barely had the guts to fix that. "Storm, I'm back. Mother taught me stupid leadership knowledge. It was so boring," called Daffodil, loudly making Storm jump. Daffodil was Storm's only friend. After he escaped, a gazator chased him up a tree. Storm wasn't good at climbing and holding onto trees, and slipped into the rushing water below. When he woke, he saw an owl-like face staring down at him. It had little wings and a stubby body. It was the same age as him, as its talons had not fully grown, and it was still growing in its feathers along its body. It was not much bigger than him, as it helped him on his feet, even though it was the same age as him. That's how Storm met Daffodil. She helped him hide once he gained conscious and explained to her what happened. He doesn't know if he could have lived without her being there to help him. "You should be lucky your mother wants anything to do with you. I mean, you have like 20 siblings, right?" Storm teased her. "Yeah, but I'd rather her give that talk to any of my other siblings, not me. I mean, Spite is the second oldest and much stronger than I will ever be," she told him as she ducked to enter the cave. "Well, he won't be ever as wise as you, and the wisdom is a key trait for leadership," Storm told her. Daffodil was now 2 times bigger than Storm and looked much fiercer, but he was thankful all Daffodil was filled with was flowers and fluffy unicorns. She had the biggest smile on her face almost all the time. Even though her species is known to be scary and serious, she was different. He giggled. "What?" she asked, looking over at him. "Nothing, it just seems like your size in this cave is not your buddy," he said, looking at her as she bended over and had to tuck her arms in as she struggled to get more into an open spot. "It's not my fault this cave was made for a small creature," she remarked. "Plus, I did show you other caves that would be more suitable for you and me, but you didn't like them." "That's because so many of them look too big and noticeable or too close to a living tribe. But we don't need to talk about that. What stupid leadership knowledge did your mother teach you this time?" he asked as he stretched, waking himself up more. "She told me a tutor must always be fierce, especially leaders. We are the symbol of strength and wisdom, and anyone who acts out is a shame to all who breathe. Since I'm the oldest out of all the siblings, I'm next in line. She always stresses me that I need to be less happy. But why would I do that?" Daffodil told Storm as she used her beak to pluck out her old feathers. "You don't sound so excited about being a leader," Storm said. "That's because being a leader isn't something I want to do. I want to help creatures who are injured or hurt or carrying. Plus, my mother is trying to make me into something I'm not. I mean, look at me. I'm not brave, strong, or serious, and I'm not wise," she told him with a glut of sadness in her eyes. "But I can't change that because it's against the rules, so I'm forced to become next in line." Storm frowned, seeing how disappointed Daffodil looked. "Well, maybe you could change the rules, make it different. You could be the tribe's way of changing forced jobs. Plus, you do need to be wise for any big jobs like healers," he told her, and she laughed. "What's so funny?" he asked Daffodil. "Storm, you're my best friend, but you really have no idea how life works." "Well, for your information, I've grown up hiding in a cave, only relying on these scrolls on some tribes," he told her. "Well, maybe I could show you more than just a cave when I'm a leader," she told him, looking like she regretted what she said. "Daffodil, you couldn't do that. When you're a leader, my kind is being hunted for fun, and their so-called revenge showing me publicly could put the Tutos in danger," he responded. "Well, like you said, when I'm leader I could change things," she remarked. The sun peeked through the tiny hole in the cave, making Storm squint from the light. "Well, while you enjoy your leadership lecture, I'll be out adventuring like normal," Storm said, putting scrolls back on the shelves. "Be safe, Storm, please," she told him as she got up, shaking the dust from her feathers. "I will, you don't have to worry about me," he said, as he followed her out the cave onto the edge of the mountain. Storm watched Daffodil fly away as he enjoyed the chilly breeze that rustled his fur. After he adjusted to the sun, he could see his old home down below. The trees were now green and tall, and the small critters wandered the ground. It looked just like it did back before the battle, but this time it wasn't busy with muskers, but instead empty and quiet. He carefully climbed down the mountain, using his claws to latch onto the dirt to keep himself steady. He jumped down, and when he was inches away from the forest ground, his ears moved in every direction sound came from, as he was fully alert now. Being out here was risky enough, but being spotted would spread news quickly, and he would have to quarantine in his cave once more. He kept low as he crept through the thick forest. Its fresh scent made Storm happy as he sniffed the air. He was on edge as he wandered the forest. There was a faded scent of gazator in the forest, and Storm guessed they owned this land now, but barely used it. He was relieved to know they barely used his own home. He caught the scent of prey close by and crouched down, creeping up on the tiny mouse-like creature. It was eating a small seed, sitting upright. It didn't know Storm, who was inches away. Storm pounced, grabbing the creature by its spine, instantly killing it. After killing the creature, he climbed up a tiny tree and sat down, enjoying his lunch. He missed living in the forest and seeing sunlight every day. He missed being in a tribe of his own kind. His happiness turned to sorrow as he felt hopeless about ever seeing his kind again. He remembered going out on his first hunt with Rain. It was a cold, chilly, but a perfect time to hunt. He smiled, remembering how stubborn he was. He would ignore Rain's lecture as he focused on the forest around him. Even though he failed that hunt, he remembered coming back to camp with the biggest smile. After eating his kill, he buried its bones to make sure to leave no trace he hunted here, and continued his adventure. The forest sounds made Storm relax as he crept quietly through the forest bush. Suddenly, he caught a strong gazator scent and bolted up the nearest tree. His heart pounded as he heard footsteps get closer. He lowered himself into a sneak attack position, ready for any gazator he spotted in the tree. As the footsteps got louder, he heard more than one. Knowing it would be stupid to attack both, he jumped to a more covered tree and laid completely still. Red scales appeared as two gazator walked straight to the tree he was in. He forced himself to keep still as fear rushed through his body. "Where is she? She said she would be here and she isn't," the gazator snorted angrily as it looked around for someone. "You know how tutos are, they think everyone will make time for them no matter what," the other responded, using its weapons to sharpen its claws. A tuto, as in daffodil species, he thought, studying his surroundings. "For a meeting this important, it would be wise for you both to wait for me," a voice responded to the two bickering. A much larger tuto than Daffodil walked up to the gazators. It was Daffodil's mother. She was covered in all sorts of shiny diamonds and had a large crown weighing on her head. Her blue eyes stared down at the gazator, who seemed a bit intimidated by her size and confidence. "Your Majesty," they both said, quickly bowing down. Storm knew Daffodil's mother, Flower, was pretty well known and most feared, but he didn't know she was this powerful to the point that the most cold-hearted and stubborn creatures like gazators would bow down to her without refusal. "Well, do you have what I want?" she demanded, glaring at the two. "Yes, it's on its way right now. It has a bit of an attitude, so I'd be careful," one of them told her confidently. "You didn't think to bring it with you," she snarled. We didn't know how long it would take, and we didn't want to escape any minute. It should be here," they responded nervously. Luckily, before she could speak, the sounds of footsteps got closer. What do they have? Storm thought, having a gut feeling he knew what creature it was, but he hoped he was wrong. Poor Gazator appeared with a musker tied up behind them and pulled it forward. Its body was filled with scars and its eyes wide with fear. It seemed very ill as it struggled to even keep up as a slow walking pace. "Why does it have scars? Why is it skinny and so ill?" she demanded angrily. Storm watched in horror. How could Daffodil's own mother do this, or think it's right to even do this? It was very stubborn and won't listen and deserves the scars. "You did request this one specifically, and it did come down with a deadly illness," the Gazator said, looking back at the musker angrily. "But the illness isn't contagious. These muskers are just weak," the second one added quickly. "Well, maybe I should lower my pay for you disobeying my orders, bringing an ill, beat-up one," she said, pulling it closer to her. The musker snarled weakly at Flower as it tried its best to get free from her grasp. "This meeting is over. Thank you for your trade," she said, and grabbed the much tinier musker with her talons, looking back at them. "Oh, and don't expect me to do any more trading with your kind," she added and flew off. Storm, who was still shocked by what he saw, lost his grip, almost falling out of the tree, but he gained it back just in time to hide deeper in the tree. The gazator looked up at the tree. "Someone has been watching us," it told its group, and they all started to surround his tree. Storm crouched down, his heart pounded as they searched the tree. "I have to leap in order to escape this," he told himself, as he took a deep breath, getting ready to leap out of the tree. Storm leaped, flying overhead of the gazator, and crashed onto the forest floor below. "A musker! Get it!" shouted one of the gazator, and they all bolted forward. Storm quickly got to his feet and bolted away from the gazator that gave chase. Storm searched for a way out of the chase, searching the forest. All he could see was more trees, and picked up his pace. He tripped on a huge root beneath him, making him fall and roll onto the ground. He felt a bit dazed, but he saw the gazator were much closer now, and quickly resumed running, ignoring the throbbing pain. Storm felt confident they wouldn't catch him when he heard the shouting soften, and slowed down his pace to look for a turn that would lose him. He noticed the opening he took from the mountain and turned away from it. It was too dangerous to lead them to his hideout. He heard the rushing water ahead, and his hope lifted. "I can escape by the river," he thought, and ran towards the sound. Storm stopped at the ledge of the cliff that hung over the river, and he glanced over. The water's current was aggressive as it splashed against the huge rocks that laid in the middle of the river. It was dangerous, but Storm knew there wasn't any other option. He took a huge breath and leaped in, feeling the water hit his body and pulling him under. He wailed under the water, desperate to break the surface. He banged into a huge rock, which pushed him on the surface. He coughed up the water as he clung to the big rock desperately. He heard the gazator on the cliff looking down at the water. "If I don't let go, they will find me," he panicked, letting go of the big rock and being swept by the current once more. He felt like a stick, unable to move as the current forced him in the direction it went. He felt weak as he slowly stopped fighting the current. The storm had caught a glimpse of the gazator when the current broke him on the surface. They found him and followed him from the cliff. His hope turned to horror. He couldn't go on like this forever, and he knew they would wait until he found land to rest on or died. The current banged Storm into many rocks, making him weaker as it carried him downstream. He looked over the cliff and realized that the gazator were gone. He was so confused. Why did they just disappear? It's not like them. He paused when he realized the exact reason why. A waterfall laid up ahead not too far. Storm was horrified as he gathered all his strength to grab onto any rocks. His sharp claws dragged against the stone as the current became stronger as it got closer to the waterfall. He tried any and every way possible to cling to anything, but he was too weak and the current was too strong to keep himself still. He popped to the surface, grasping for breath only for a second, and got dragged back under again. Storm thought of Rain and how disappointed she would be if he died like this. He felt ashamed of himself. He felt a huge thud on his back as he hit a huge rock, stopping him right on the edge of the waterfall. He glanced down in horror as he tightened his grip on the rock. He was on the edge of a huge waterfall. He started to slip from the rock as the water pushed him forward. He felt himself let go of the rock as he plummeted forward down the waterfall. He closed his eyes and he fell into the depths below. Storm gained consciousness as he could feel the water splashing on his hind legs. He opened his eyes and coughed up water. He looked around and saw unfamiliar land. He sat up, feeling his feathers soaked in water in his own blood. His hind leg had a giant wound, giving a large amount of pain each time he moved it. It was still bleeding pretty badly. "Where am I?" he thought, looking around. The waterfall was far out of sight, and he didn't know how to get back. He panicked and forced himself up, shaking off the water. He was grateful he wasn't caught by the gazator. He hoped they thought he died so they wouldn't go looking for him. Storm couldn't even hear the waterfall now as he began limping the opposite way the water flowed. The waterfall had to be up ahead. The forest was quiet and the sun beamed down on him. He was tired from fighting the current and walking, but he had to get home. It wasn't safe wandering the forest he wasn't familiar with. His injured leg only slowed him down. As he walked, he thought of Daffodil and what he saw her mother take part in. It isn't Daffodil's fault, but she had to have known about it. She's next in line. Why didn't she do anything about it, or tell me? He felt angry and betrayed. His only friend he had since the war didn't even tell her anything. Hours later, he heard the waterfall in the distance and picked up his pace. He knew what he had to do once he got back. Confront Daffodil and try to free the musker. The longer he was out here, the more danger Storm had to face, as the sun was completely gone now, and the full moon started to rise. He felt like he'd been walking for days on end, as his feet ached and his whole body was numb now. It started to rain, making the forest sound peaceful and alarming at the same time. The ground underneath him became moist as the river started to slowly fill from the rain. It was only a matter of time before the gorge was filled with water. Storm finally reached the waterfall as he stopped to catch a breath and look for any dangers. Nothing was in sight and it was quiet aside from the rain. He was sure they thought he died now. His leg had lost a lot of blood from the wound, causing unbearable pain to Storm when he put pressure on it. He climbed up the rocks next to the waterfall using all the strength he had left. He slipped multiple times, falling right back down, but he kept trying until he made it up. He laid on the forest floor and when he made it up the rocks. He never felt so tired in his life. He heard the sounds of wings flapping and he bolted up to the nearest tree. "Storm, it's me, are you okay?" he heard Daffodil say as she landed to inspect him. "What do you want?" he asked coldly, pushing her off. "Well, you didn't come back and I was worried when I didn't see you in the cave. And now you're covered in your own blood and have a foul smell," she told him, not sounding guilty at all. "But you think it's okay to cage my own kind and treat them as your pet. What's next, you take me in as your own personal pet too?" He glared at her. "What?" She sounded shocked. "Of course not, why would you think that? So you don't know anything about your mother's actions in making an agreement with the gazator to taking a Muskerin as a pet?" he asked as he got up, wrapping leaves around his wound on his leg. Daffodil went silent. "I knew it, you do know, didn't you?" he said, feeling hurt from the fact that she lied even when he asked. "Yes, I did, but I can't control it. Storm, she's my mother and the leader. I didn't tell you because I knew this would happen," she said, defending herself. "You knew this would happen? Do you think I have no right to feel upset about this?" He limped closer. "Oh, of course you do, because you don't know how it feels to not have a tribe, be hunted and watch your every move, or lose loved ones at a young age, or better yet, watch them die in front of you." Daffodil looked speechless as she stared at him with guilt in her eyes. Storm walked away from Daffodil. "I'm going to free that musker your mother took as a pet. I don't expect you to help me. No, in fact, I don't want your help," he told her as he walked off, not waiting for a response. Storm wanted her to say something, apologize, argue with him to help him free the musker, but she only stood and watched him go. He felt angry. How could she not care? Do I mean anything to her? He looked back and saw she was already gone. He walked back to the mountain as the moon started to rise. The cold breeze swept over him as he climbed. He felt all alone once more as he climbed the mountain to see Daffodil wasn't waiting for him at the cave. The cave was empty and dark, and the only light was the moon that stood in the night sky. As he entered the cave, he felt a fresh scent ahead. He growled, staring into the darkness as he noticed a figure standing near his scrolls, its back turned toward him. "Well, I see you met my daughter. It's finally nice to meet you, Storm," the figure said, turning around. The moonlight shone on the figure, and Storm was shocked to see Daffodil's mother, the Queen of Tutos, standing in front of him.